Hey, what is up, everybody? Hunter Orel here, back with another great interview. Today, joined with the founders, Tim and Lucas from Openserv.ai. Now, it's no rumor or shock to anybody that AI has become like a central discussion point within the Web3 ecosystem. However, the evolution of us going from like chatbots to then agents with some intelligence of context, then to these even more complex agents that can do things on chain. We're now moving into a next evolution, which is multi-agent systems and frameworks. That is what Openserv is planning to address and has addressed through their framework and ecosystem. They have basically brought the ability to have these many different agents work together to complete a final task, where they're aggregating information, different models, different services and tool calls to give you a suite of basically tools at your hands, whether you've written a line of code in your life or never before. I love this conversation because it gives you more insight into what is coming, the new things, how creators can now approach AI and working that in to do more complex tasks. And we get into a little bit of everything. So I think it's a good conversation whether you are trying to use AI or you're a company that's trying to integrate it. There's a lot of good points that are made in this conversation. As always, thank you to our sponsor, Loot GG, for sponsoring this episode. If you haven't, make sure you go check them out and place your email in their sign up and get in early. And to you, our viewers, thank you again. It means the world that you watch these videos and stick around past this intro part where I talk about the episode and you have to listen to me talk. But it does mean the world to me. I appreciate it. Thank you. Enjoy this episode with Openserv.ai, guys. And let me know if you have any questions or comments in my DMs. Without any further ado, here is Openserv.ai. In the theme of crypto, again, I have to keep going back to this. AI continues to be one of the central topics and conversations that we have to discuss. And a bigger point has been around infrastructure, interoperability, and specifically with AI agents. I'm joined today with two of the founders from Openserv.ai. They are basically everything I've just said, trying to solve and address with their company. Guys, thank you for joining me. I'm excited to get into this topic. It's one that I think getting clarity on and addressing, and also discussing what you guys are doing to address is more than needed. But thanks for coming on. I think intro from both of you would be helpful also to start things off.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Real quick, do we have that link to retweet?
I should have pinged you on. I should have pinged you on Twitter.
On Twitter.
Yes, I should have. Okay. Yeah. Let's see here. Here, I can drop it in the private chat here.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
Cool. All right. Well, while you do that, Tim, I can start. Thanks for having us, Hunter. Great to be here. Yeah, so I'm Lucas, co-founder of Openserv. And yeah, kind of giving a little brief background on what Openserv is and who we are. Openserv started as an idea in the summer of 2023, and that came out of two main things. We saw AI agents being the next big thing. We think and thought at the time that this is going to be a massive revolution for the world in terms of productivity, in terms of accessing things that previously weren't possible. And we felt like what was really missing was the infrastructure for regular people to access it and to accelerate the space. And I think particularly given things that are going on in the world today, it's ever increasingly important for people to be self-sufficient and able to create value on their own accord. And that's kind of the vision that united us and gave us the kind of strength to push through the early difficult days and get to where we are today and build the infrastructure to hopefully support that. And with that, I will let Tim introduce himself.
Yeah, so it's sort of the prelude to that was Lucas and I got involved in BitTensor like super early on, and started mining and validating on there, and which was super lucrative, but it was quite cumbersome. Like it was the technicalities where the technical barriers were pretty high to access that at the time. So we set up a business basically abstracting all that labor away and like offering basically BitTensor mining services to people on the network and whatnot. And then that sort of threw us into the whole crypto AI intersection back in 2022, and was just reading, like just insatiable thirst for everything AI, particularly post ChatGPT moment. And that threw us into agents. And yeah, as Lucas said, we were looking at the space at the time, and it was still super early days. If you looked up AI agents on Google, you found maybe you got 5 hits or something. You typed in AI agent marketplace, you got nothing. And these days, you'll probably find 1,000 of them. And yeah, we were taking a look, and at the time there were, I mean, and this problem has only grown, but there was already a fragmentation issue where you had a few different AI agent development frameworks all sitting on GitHub, like AutoGPT, Baby AGI, Meta GPT. And these were just some bare bones frameworks that a developer could use to build some agents. But there was no sort of venue for a developer to monetize their work. So if they wanted to, create some revenue out of it, they would have had to create an entire business. And not every developer wants to be an entrepreneur. And then 2, for a user, there was no straightforward way to access agents. So that's kind of where the idea was born out of, to create a platform where developers could monetize their creations. And through doing that, we would essentially commoditize skills. If we picture agents as represent certain skill sets, and if we can place them on an open platform for anyone to access, we've essentially just commoditized skills and talent, so that anyone in the world could go and access skills that they didn't necessarily have themselves. And we sort of saw this as the next step in, like personal autonomy. We got some of our inspiration from these like freelance platforms like Fiverr or Upwork that played a huge role in sort of lifting up the autonomy of individuals across the world in developing countries and developed countries, giving them a platform to sort of market themselves and access a global customer base. So people training up on certain skills, whether it's photography, editing, coding, programming, whatever it is. And through a platform like Fiverr or Upwork, someone, sitting in the Philippines could immediately access a customer base in the US. And that was a game changer. And we really wanted to kind of build on that concept. And imagine a coder or like a video editor on Fiverr who can then access 50 different skills to sort of supercharge their own work and then
Right.
market that
Yeah,
somewhere else.
we've seen a lot of like AI. What OpenAI has put out so far has been like, okay, here's a tool for like this specific person. Here's a tool like, and then we start to see like all these things very fragmented pop up. You guys are coming at this in the sense of, okay, there's tons of tools, there are tons of solutions out there, but nobody is thinking about this from okay, how do we bring all this together under one roof? How do we have, an agent network that when I want a overarching idea or mission to happen, multiple different things can collaborate to make that happen.
Exactly. And I think when AI agents were starting to be a thing, this was a time where single agents were really the only thing that people had thought of. And I think a paper came out of Stanford called Chat Dev, and that was making a really, really cool paper that was honestly a lot of the inspiration behind this. And we saw multiple AI agents working together to be its own little software development firm. And we thought naturally that's the progression of this. I mean, any system is more powerful than the sum of the sum of any system is more powerful than its individual parts. And so that's kind of what inspired us to build this. And by focusing on, multiple frameworks, allowing people to build what they're comfortable with, I think we felt like that's the greatest way that we can create value for people given the current landscape.
The evolution that we've seen of agents in the space, going from the very early, and they still exist, rudimentary chat GPT wrappers,
Yeah.
that were no more than a recurring prompt output, right? Like, I don't think people understand how like absolutely hello world level like terrible those were, but they were getting these crazy valuations, and we were in the meme coin market. And then we moved into, okay, wait, we can actually have them analyze a tweet, still a prompt, but there's a little bit more dynamic. That was like phase 2. Then phase 3 was, oh wait, we can introduce RAG into this. We can, so more context, memory, and now they're a little bit smarter. People have then started building out data terminals, databases. So like, there's been this expansion. Your philosophy has been, and again, for listeners who might not be as technical, these have been single agents. So there's a single, basically system prompt. You have your single database, and then you have, your output. There's input, output, and that could be via text, that could be via action. The future, though, in your eyes, and probably where the space is gonna, next evolution into, is multiple agents alongside each other. Swarms has been one of the terms that's been used greatly. DeFi and gaming have been two of the main kind of verticals where people have kind of bolstered this term. You guys agree with this, right? I'm understanding this. I was trying to break it down a little bit.
100%. I mean, a lot of our design and development philosophy is that, real life is probably a really good indicator of success. And to replicate a real life system where humans collaborate, any organization you work at, you're not a single individual person doing every task by themselves. There's only so much one person can do. And by allowing people to specialize and work together, I think naturally we've seen that gives much better results. And that was, again, a lot of the inspiration for us starting. And I think we've seen that come to fruition with a lot of the systems we've designed. And like you laid out, DeFi is definitely one of the areas that's really latched onto this. I think everyone starts calling it DeFi now. It's its own little sector. And actually, that's one of the, if not the first application we're building on top of our platform, because now that we've built the infrastructure, we think it's really important to showcase the kind of depth of what you can do with our platform and with this technology. And so we're spinning out our premier use case, which is like a customizable DeFi dashboard, born out of the principle that, number one, crypto has a UX problem, and number two, AI agents are a really unique UX solve, able to condense what used to be multiple steps, multiple platforms, hours of work into really just a couple of clicks. And by converting your experience from manually carrying out this work to more of a controller, the CEO of your own process, that's the kind of future that we see AI taking the DeFi space, and obviously the general Web2 and productivity space as well.
I was on a morning show this morning, obviously, and one of the we talked about AI and agents pretty heavily. Another AI company, and one of the closing points was around like, what is going to be the next dark horse moment? Like Pump Fund was previous cycle dark horse moment, and leading to this next, whatever spur of the moment, whether it's another leg up in this bull run or whatever. But the question was, what is going to be the next kind of thing that emerges? And I think it'll be AI. But under that point, I said you have to look at it. It'll be under the lens of friction. So UX has been kind of friction mania for crypto, whether that's creating a wallet, sending a transaction, swapping, bridging. Like it's not intuitive, and it's also time consuming. There's a lot of steps, clicking, typing. Like from a user experience standpoint, do you see this turning into like it's like a terminal and people are just prompting stuff and asking agents to do things? Is it voice? Like in that overarching idea of UX simplicity and you guys solving that, what do you think that looks like?
Yeah, so I mean, a little bit to step one step back, like, we've progressed from this chat GPT kind of style of input output where you just give one prompt and then it does the work and then you get it back. That's not how work happens in real life. Like, you delegate, you get input, you provide feedback. So we've created this system for these complex multitask, multi-agent actions. And what we've, as our platform has developed and as our thinking has developed, we've kind of realized that our platform is actually super powerful. Not only can it sort of these agent workflows exist on our platform, but someone can build an app on top of the platform that leverages agents on the back end. And if we think as agents as a UX solve, so imagine we configure a bunch of agents together to execute some sort of task or function that can live at the base level on our platform. Think of it as the layer one, like ETH, kind of where the sort of transactions and on-chain execution happens in a metaphorical sense. And then you have these DeFi or dApps that live on top of it, where all of the abstraction is done at the ground level. All of the task execution, all of the file handling, all of that jazz is done at the ground level. And then you can surface that to a user, a separate user experience that you can custom tailor make to something completely new and completely different. And where you can have like one input on this new kind of this new UI, which then triggers like an agent workflow on the sort of ground level, and all of these things happening in the background are automated for you. So what we're building right now with this dashboard thing, which we're calling Dash.Fun, Pump Fund has created a nice, neat little, I don't know, .fun is a nice little, I don't know what the word is, but sort of domain name for crypto native offerings or products. And yeah, we see a dashboard as a really unique user experience that can solve a lot of the issues in crypto. So right now, let's say I'm a DGen and I trade, and I'm always looking for alpha and insights and signal. And I'm scrolling through Twitter. I have 50 different tabs open of all my KOLs and projects I follow. Then I got different data streams, data visualization, Kaito. I'm looking at Yaps. I'm looking at Cookie.Fun. Which agent, I'm looking at Deck Screener. I probably have 5 different windows open with 20 tabs on each window, right? Just so I can hopefully find some information and some signal and some alpha for an investment or a trade. Why does it have to live like that? Why can't we just put it all in one destination? And agents are uniquely positioned to perform that and execute that, because all of this stuff can run on the background, in this case on our platform, and everything is just surfaced to the user in a single interface. So imagine like a single web browser or dashboard where you have different tiles or modules, and each one executes a different research task or on-chain sort of analytics task or a charting tool or whatever it is, and it all lives in one place. And you can research, you can discover, you can trade, we can add, this can take so many different levels. We can add entertainment on it, we can add gaming, we can add social elements to it, and build sort of build the tagline we've been using is the home page of crypto, like one destination, like a super app that aggregates everything into a single user experience.
Yeah, and kind of building on top of that, kind of going back to your question with, I think there's another couple companies or projects working on this. You see Hey Anon, which I think they do a great job.
There's so many. And the funny thing is, every day, even today, this morning, I found like another 2. There's so many lurking, and there's so many that haven't announced, and I know that some that are like everybody listening, and you guys obviously know this, we're about to have like mania of all these companies coming out of the woodwork, all these devs who've never done anything in crypto being like, oh, you know what? Like, I'm a very skilled software engineer. I have some friends, like, let's spit, like, it's going to get crazy, very competitive too.
Yeah. And I think, well, 2 things on that. Number one, AI in general just really lowers the barriers to entry. So a broader like trend I think you're going to see across Web 2 and Web 3 is the pace of innovation and the number of people who can like access and create. I think that's going to go up exponentially. So I think you're definitely going to see a huge flood of agents or projects. And I think that's why we particularly wanted to focus on an infrastructure play to position ourselves well for that. And then particularly with this application, I think people like Hey Anon, I think they do a great job of abstracting the crypto experience into a chat window. But what we felt is you miss a lot of context with a chat window. If you go into it, you need to know exactly what you want to know. You need to know exactly the trade you want to make.
Yep.
And some again, I feel like that still requires you to go to a bunch of different windows. Whereas if we're able to have chat for sure as a really cool way to execute on-chain transactions and use it when you want to, but as well provide that additional context around it, we see that user experience as being far superior and also a lot more flexible. We've had calls with a number of different people, obviously, about this as we start to try onboard some big projects to help us get the name out there and also to provide a lot of value for our users. But you can have entire discovery dashboards, which are catered to, let's say your favorite KOL has his own process on how he gets his information. He can map out his flow, create his own dashboard and share it with his followers. Obviously, we look for some way to monetize that. But I think another really unique thing about this process is that as someone who doesn't really understand crypto, you can hop in and leverage the tools created by the best of the best without trading at a massive disadvantage. I think there's a huge disparity in the abilities of people trading in crypto. And obviously that's a part of the edge these top traders make, but it means the people at the bottom who don't know, who don't have $1,000 to spend on Kaito, who don't know who to be following, they're at a huge disadvantage. And if you're able to convey that information and allow them to trade in a way that fits their needs, is simpler, is understandable, I think that's a huge unlock. And not only for them, but I think for people getting into crypto. We always talk about onboarding the next million, billion users. Like, they're not going to come on and sign up to these different wallets and then bridge their funds here and wait 5 days for them to unlock and this and that and that. A lot of this idea actually came from me talking to my friends, like a few months ago, and they were, obviously I told them about what the work I was doing. They were really excited, like, hey, how can I buy your token? And I think I spent like 5-6 hours just trying to walk these guys through, like, okay, here's the account you create, here's this, here's that we can simplify that process. And I think agents are really uniquely positioned to do that in a way that you were never able to do before. And we're really interested in experimenting with AI agent user experience and how we can modify that and change that and try new things just to like change that process to make it a lot more seamless. And again, bring on that next group of users.
Yeah. Friction. It's removing the friction.
Exactly.
It's what Pump Fund did. It's what Sushi Swap did in some sense for the ease of swapping between tokens. Every cycle it has been, I think, reduction of friction.
Yep.
Do you guys think about like as we like move forward here, like who are like the biggest applications you think could have the most impact from like using someone like you? Like, obviously you're going and talking to like big partners. Like, if you were like, no, like of all of them, it's like it's a terminal or it's a DEX or it's a information company like Cato. Like, who in your mind is like, hey, like you could just grab them on their shoulders and be like, use us. Who is it?
Yeah,
Dash.fun, the end user is a crypto consumer for Dash.fun in particular. Like, obviously we're aggregating kind of these different companies to create sort of like custom modules. So like a Kaito module that displays and visualizes certain data. Then we've spoken to a really cool team called Ethos Network. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Yes, I have them on the show. Great guys.
So imagine, really so imagine like for that, it's like social verifiable credibility scores. So imagine, you type in a project on Twitter and you see 10 people who have mentioned it, and you can just quickly cross-reference, hey, are these actually some KOLs of any reputation, or are they just reprehensible grifters? And so with that, we're kind of aggregating these different, like Kaito, could be Cookie, could be Ethos. We're aggregating these different like sort of data providers, and we're either just going to directly hit their APIs or going to have a more collaborative, custom solution for that. But then the end user here is the crypto consumer for Dash.fun in particular.
But yeah, I wanted to...
So average participant. And then as Lucas said, like we'd love to, as we get traction and product market fit within the existing crypto sphere, we'd love to use this as an opportunity to onboard that next million, 10 million, 100 million users onto crypto, because we can remove all these barriers, we can equalize the playing field a little bit. And yeah.
But to clarify your question, were you asking like if we could use just one, if we just integrate one project, or were you asking more about like one user group?
I think I was thinking about like integration, right? Like, one thing that I always like to like tell people is like you can have an agent that does stuff. There are tool calls via API, like, and there's operators, right? It's all different to a degree. So, you're obviously like there are companies that you still have to like onboard in who are like, hey, like we're thinking about having our services be integrated into what you're doing.
Yeah.
We don't normally have an API. We're looking for a specific partner. Like, you're obviously having these conversations. Yeah. Ethos is a great one though. That was more kind of leaning towards like a direction of like, how are you guys approaching big partners?
So Ethos for sure, but I think for us the number one group would be these information platforms. So like Kaito, I mean, we're specifically having more discussions with Cookie, which we're really excited about. And the reason for that is, I think over the last like decade or so, there's a really big focus on big data, right? Collecting all this data. Data is going to be everything. And I think for the last 10, 20 years, we've been collecting a lot of data. And I think we haven't really had that much of a use for it. Or yeah, you have some data analytics, but we haven't used it to its full potential. And then now we have agents, we have AI. AI, I think, is the biggest user of data. And I think is the one that benefits from it the most. So by us being able to integrate these data analytics platforms, I think the agents were able to build on top of it. And more than that, the experiences we're able to build on top of that will be much deeper. Like we're just talking right now, we're talking about a very surface level. Okay, we're going to combine bubble maps and a few of the things you use into a nice user experience, and you can do everything in one. And okay, we'll have a little chat window. But I think the really interesting stuff comes from, all right, what if you're on the back end combining data from Ethos and data from Cookie to filter out certain things, and then you get live reports from an agent trained on, I don't know, Sammy's tweets and his style that's trained on his workflow. And you can really create these really complicated, really interesting user experiences that, I mean, it's hard to even think of right now. And we probably haven't thought of a fraction of them yet. And I think the biggest unlock to that would for sure be the data analytics platforms.
And I think if I can just jump in there, I think in today's crypto landscape, the value of data has got shot up exponentially compared to 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 8 years ago. Like imagine the class of 2017, all they had to do was filter through a couple hundred projects, and it was super easy to find information. 2021 cycle, there was a multiple of that, but still, like within any certain narrative, whether it was NFTs, DeFi, whatever, was the like gaming was a big one in 2021. There was a limited number of projects and KOLs and all of these sort of participants, and all of that breeds data. And that has just exploded.
There's a point where it was like proof of work, proof of stake, file privacy, peer-to-peer transfer, and like Swift replacement tokens like XRP. That was it. That was
my
like
Filecoin, my Bitcoin.
Yeah, that was like the scope of all the like categories. Now you have, on a day-to-day basis, there's like, oh well, this is a completely new category of token, and we're reimagining it. It's just matured. But with that, there's just like a data flow that is insane. Do you think data is like the real differentiator at the end of the day? Like I made this point earlier this morning. I said everybody is going to be moving towards making their own models, making their own agents, having their own integrations. But whoever has the most sophisticated proprietary data sets is going to have an advantage over everybody else, because that's something you can't implement.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I had this conversation over the weekend with someone. I think as we get more into training these specific models, and I think this is actually kind of what tied into what Tim and I saw when we started, is you're going to get much more sophisticated data sets, and naturally you're going to get a lot better models trained on specific data sets. If you tried to train a kid by giving them all the information in the world, you just gave them like a 20 million page textbook and just said, go through all of this. And then at the end of it, all right, do you know anything? Like they probably wouldn't know a lot, right? They would have a lot of useless information, not really sure how to connect it, versus you have a structured school system that teaches you these things one by one. Of course, you're going to get a lot better results. And by having more structured data, more high quality data, more selective data, yeah, I fully agree with you. I think that's going to be a big thing. And I think kind of building on top of that as well, we talked about removing friction. And we talked about how removing friction, like you said, with tokens, with projects, we've already seen like the amount of projects shoot up exponentially. And the more and more friction we remove, the more and more noise there's going to be. And that's why, again, we were really excited about Dash.Fun, is because we think in a way it's a way to separate the signal from the noise. And I think that's going to become ever more important as we get more and more noise. I mean, there's the dead internet theory that we're already living in an internet where the majority of things, or the majority of tweets and people are just bots and it's not even real. I don't think that's true yet, but we're very,
we're trending in that direction, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and as the space matures and more sophisticated entities enter in increasing numbers, and they're looking for, people are here to trade and invest and make money. Apart from the builders and all that. But think of your average, your fund, your investment entity, your fund manager, your VC. they started off, trading Bitcoin. And as that has gotten increasingly difficult with algos, and as that market becomes more efficient, you have to go further down and down the curve. And as you roll down that curve, the value of information rises exponentially. Like when you're out there trading, low market cap shitters, for lack of a better word, any information that you can disseminate from that, and it can be small little things that may not seem like a lot, but you add them up, can be super helpful and valuable in sort of informing your decisions as a crypto participant. That value of information is going up exponentially. And particularly, as we said, with the sort of explosion of just noise and in this space. So someone like Cookie, like these guys are sitting on an absolute gold mine, because they saw this ahead of the curve, and like people like that are going to be sitting pretty for quite some time as this kind of dynamic plays out. And we'd love to be the ones to kind of aggregate it all and deliver that to a user in a accessible user experience that so far hasn't been made available to the average person.
The same themes keep playing out, and obviously you guys are playing on them, which is user experience, friction, fragmentation. You mentioned something though in that previous topic around like dead internet theory. We've moved from the blockchain experience being almost completely 100% human to human interaction. You knew the person on the other side was a human. You knew the token that just got launched was a human. You knew the artwork that was just created and launched as an NFT was human. We're now moving into a sector of human to AI where we're using AI to prompt something. We're asking it to go do something for us. Are we approaching and obviously in the multi-agent sector, we're approaching AI to AI interactions and transactions. But do you think that actually does take up a majority of the transactions, a majority of what is happening on the blockchain? And also, like, most of AI models are interacting with another AI at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it's going to take up an ever increasing portion. I think it probably already takes up a sizable portion for sure. But yeah, I 100% think that the blockchain and a lot of the internet, like, I wonder, website user experience is going to be in the future entirely designed just for an AI agent, almost like a ghost kitchen, right? We saw that in the COVID pandemic where, all of a sudden you don't need a storefront. You're just making the stuff in the back and shipping it out. Are we just going to have websites that don't have a front facing page for humans because, well, humans don't need it? I think there's going to be a lot of like really like mind bending or changes that could happen. Just a theory.
I mean, you're proposing that it's almost the opposite. Instead of like you having like the robots.txt to like, hey, like robots go here, it's almost like you have a human.txt. It's like, all right, human, like here's just a single one page. You can view some stuff, but agents and bots get the entirety of everything, and they can, there's an entire suite of things for them to do and interact with. And then it's, input, output. You don't know what's happening in this black box.
I think there's a good chance of that. I wouldn't stake my life on it, but
I know it's just a like
100% crazy to think about. Completely different
concept in how
paradigm.
things are changing. Yeah.
And I mean that's something that we're working towards. Like we already have that in our vision, in our roadmap, is to enable that kind of environment and dynamic. Like we talk about UX, and right now the way we've set up our UX is to involve the human and kind of mimic these human collaborative sort of dynamics that have been built over millennia. But that's because we still rest on a foundation of a somewhat limited oh, are you guys
we're
here. Cut out? Okay. We're resting on a foundation of agents that are still limited in their capabilities and scope and reliability. So we have to build in these measures to ensure reliable output. But imagine when we progress over the next 5, 10, 15 years to agents that are super, super robust and super, super reliable, that we don't need to include these kind of guardrails anymore and structures around human in the loop and whatnot, where we know that's reliable, we know it's going to work every time, and we can then create another level of abstraction on top of that, where user, you can interface. Oh shit! It looks like I keep cutting out.
Your audio kept going.
Yeah, audio's okay. Okay, well,
okay, it was.
In this case, it's not. I'll jump in, but yeah, I mean, I see it a lot. Like, you have pipes. You don't have pipes that transmit water from one place to another. You don't have one guy sitting there with a pump, like trying to push the water along. At some point, you just trust the pumps are going to work. And while I don't think we're there yet, and I also want to emphasize, I don't think even in that world, like I don't think humans won't have a role. I think they're still going to be important, but I think it's just going to be a lot less involvement. I think it's going to be a lot more direction, a lot more guiding agents on what to do. Now, I don't know exactly how that's going to play out. I think it's going to be really interesting and a lot of value to be created by the people, as things start to clear up and we start to get a better idea of really the limits and the boundaries of what AI can do. I think there's going to be a lot of scope for innovation on, and a lot of potential. Oh, there he goes. Okay. But yeah, exciting stuff. Scary stuff, but exciting stuff, I think, if we manage it right.
Yeah, it's a big undertaking at the end of the day. And I think that the more like we dive, like we see like these other companies dive into things and like kind of push like, hey, like I have a competitive advantage here, really, like it's just evolution. We're gonna keep getting stronger and stronger infra around like, hey, this is how we use the blockchain now.
Exactly.
I wanted to touch on around this idea of like stronger and better companies and pushing the space forward. You guys had a hackathon that just wrapped up. It sounds like you had a ton of participation. I forget how many people entered it, but you did just do the awards. You had a great panel of judges also.
Yeah.
Can you guys walk through who applied, who the winners were, anything notable from your hackathon?
Yeah, sure. So we had, I think, what was it, over 1,000 people that applied, if not a little more. A bit rusty on the stats, but I'm pretty sure it was around 1,000 to 2,000 people that applied. So that was obviously crazy to see. And we also gave people a really short window. I think, we were working with Hacker Earth, who's a company that runs a lot of these hackathons, and they said the usual window is like 6 to 8 weeks. We gave them 2 weeks and said, make it work. And graciously they did, and we were able to bring in a lot of people. And yeah, it was really cool to see people use our platforms, giving us a lot of feedback in terms of what to improve, like where the user experience doesn't quite meet the mark, things that aren't working. But I think the majority of feedback was really, really positive. I think that most people were able to build their agents in under 15 minutes. Like it was really like a lot of things we were blown away by, and we've been able to implement a lot of the fixes. But the most interesting part, like you mentioned, is of course what people could build. Now we didn't give people a ton of direction, so it was definitely a big test on the people. But we were able to see some, really cool things people built in just a couple of days. I think if the audience wants to go to a website called kolx.fun, that's just one of the submissions that someone built. Again, we only gave them a weekend, so I can imagine they could do a lot more with that time. But with that platform, someone was able to make a dashboard where you can track your KOL. But not only that, you can automatically generate articles based on the tweets of that KOL. Yeah, there you go. And I think if you check, if you go to the feeds, explore it a little bit, there was one section, or if you scroll down a little bit, any mentioned token, you'll be able to click on it and trade. Usually it'll take you to I guess it's disabled right now, but usually you should be able to take it and trade through Telegram. Then you also are able to go through the KOLs. If you go to the top section and click on the individual KOLs, and see what they've tweeted, you're also able to generate reports based off of what they've been tweeting. So I think there's a lot of really cool stuff. And again, it's the speed that really blew us away, right? The fact that someone could do this with,
this is pretty damn good. I'm actually like,
this is like what, 48 hours, 72 hours we gave them to build this. And right now, I think they're making some updates, so maybe not all of the features were working, but when they uploaded it, everything was working great. Crazy to see that someone could build this in such a short period of time.
This is incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it speaks to the testament of like just AI speeding up like the rate of innovation, right? Like someone built this in a weekend, with not a lot of input from us, not a lot of support, just had this idea and quickly spun it up, let alone a few people working together over a few weeks to really build something they're really passionate about and solve a use case or solve a problem that they have. I think you see this really interesting emergence of vibe coding as well. Like, I think that's another thing. Not only are the people who know how to code enabled to create and innovate at a much higher rate, actually people who never could have done that before because they have no coding experience can also participate in that. So again, I think that contributes to that thing we talked about before of just being, I think this explosion of projects and innovation is just going to continue, and the rate of acceleration is just going to continue as well.
That site is actually
it's like a real working site. Like I was expecting something like that. Like,
no, it's really good though. I mean, obviously, like they had 2 weeks to do it. It wasn't like they just typed in a prompt.
They had 2 days. They had 2 weeks to submit. Yeah, they had 2 weeks to submit their submission. They had 2 or 3 days, I think, maybe 72 hours if I remember correctly.
My God. Okay.
Yeah.
A little different. Yeah, that is so good. Yeah, that is real infrastructure right there that we saw. That is somebody being able to pull all these things, aggregate into one place, and get output. You guys have been really forward with having your docs. I think you're fully open source to an extent.
Or we have a open source SDK. We haven't open source all the internal workings of our platform, but we do have a SDK that allows people to build stuff super simply. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a huge must-have for anybody building in this vertical right now.
Absolutely,
you need devs. You need people to come in and be able to build on top of it. Otherwise, there's a loss point there.
Exactly, and that's where the infrastructure play. A lot of it comes from people building on top. And I think, Tim talked about our original vision, connecting builders and users. We feel like the first stage or the most important thing that was missing at that point was the infrastructure to allow and I don't want to restrict it to just developers. I think what we've seen with our platform, some of the contestants weren't just developers, but were also just builders, power users, people who just love AI and haven't coded before, but just wanted to build something new. And so I think we've been trying to internally change our wording away from devs to just like agent developers or agent builders.
Creators. I think it's creators.
Creators is a great term.
I had a long discussion actually last weekend about we're in the creator economy, and that has always meant like short form, long form video content.
Yeah.
But with the almost like tidal wave of vibe coding, with the tidal wave of like pump.fun, all of a sudden the ability to create things that took deep technical understanding. And I'm not saying like anybody's changing the world with a pump.fun token, right? Like, but that removed this understanding of like, okay, what is a Solana contract? How do I, set this? How do I deploy it? How do I get liquidity, bonding curve? Like, you don't have to, you have no understanding. You're just literally typing and clicking and giving them
testament to that. I had a friend who had no exposure to crypto at all, who launched his own coin before he even he made a wallet, launched a coin. That was it. He had no understanding of the blockchain, nothing else, no other exposure. He just saw this like TJR trades guy doing some Twitch streams and was like, sick, I want to make my own coin. I'm gonna get rich.
I always slam on I'm like, back in my day, if you wanted to launch an NFT project, you need 3 devs, 4 weeks, and $5,000. Like, and now like you can literally same
kids
thing.
These days.
These kids. Dude, I'm old now. I'm fucking old in this space.
Yeah, it feels like I see like 15-year-olds like spinning out like SaaS products. I'm like, well, what was I doing at 15? Like playing football and
It's the modern day sneaker botter. That is I have a strong thesis around that and who I work with, etc. But we are turning into an area of like hey, like you gotta have understanding that you can go create stuff, and it doesn't mean you have to have a college degree. Doesn't mean you have to have ever written a line of code, any understanding of what AI is, or you can just go do it.
Exactly. Like that. Wanted to use that as our company tagline, just do it, but realize maybe Nike's been there a little longer than us. So.
They might come after you on that one. That seems like the wrong company to try to go up against with the trademarks. On the topic of 4-letter names, you guys have a 4-letter ticker, Serve. You guys actually have a token that's been out since I think November.
Yep.
You guys have the almost iconic AI chart that has gone up and then the pullback. And again, there's no hate there. It's the state of AI tokens. Walk me through like the token, its utility, is there utility, what's your plans around it, and then you guys as a company, obviously, like, what's the business model? I know these are like less fun conversations to have, but it is one that everybody who's thinking of building a company in the space right now is like, all right, do I launch a token? Do I go after like real like Web2 recurring revenue model? What's your business model and plan right now?
Yeah, sure. I'm back. Sorry for the hiatus. Of course, it
It's
fails on.
It's Alaskan internet.
So nice.
So okay, so we have, so we have this agnostic platform, right? And we have a roadmap that sort of starts off in Web3 and then transitions into including Web2 as well. So for our Web2 stuff, everyone, no one in Web2 wants to deal with buying a token on Uniswap, right? So for what we're doing there, basically, our main platform is, it's a general marketplace model. So there are agent providers and people who use agents, and we just take a fee for the transactions that take place on the platform. So for Web2, and they're going to be categorized by Web2, Web3. So things in Web2 are going to be processed in fiat. We have Stripe integrated right now, and can open that up to other avenues like PayPal and whatnot. But done with fiat, and then we, on the back end, apportion some of that revenue towards buying back and burning the token. So there's going to be a consistent and growing sort of demand and burn pressure coming from the Web2 side, particularly as we kind of expand into the enterprise space and start bringing on some big clients who process lots of information and lots of data and tasks. Then on the Web3 side, we want to be much more crypto native there. So everything Web3 requires the token at its sort of base level. So you have to essentially pay Serve tokens or burn Serve tokens to access certain features. Lots of advanced features will be gated behind sort of holding Serve tokens. And then for Dash Fund, that's kind of the real like crypto native application of ours, and that's going to be fully integrated with our token. So the sort of baseline for a beta, we're going to have Serve payments. You want to access the dashboard, you got to pay Serve. Simple as that. Like nothing much to it. And then the really interesting part is, we looked, how can we make this crypto native? How can we introduce, novel mechanisms of tokenization and whatnot? And for that, we are basically going to be enabling these tokenized dashboards. So imagine a person of interest creates a custom dashboard with custom modules, and it represents some kind of custom research flow that they have. They can then tokenize that, and then that token will be paired against the Serve token. So if you want to access that dashboard from XYZ KOL or persona or whatever, you have to buy the Serve token in order to buy that other token, which then swaps it in the liquidity pool, then it sits in the liquidity pool, and this is essentially sort of taken out of circulation for some time. And this is actually a model. I know Virtuals was the famously got a lot of success and traction out of that. But it's something we've actually been exploring since the summer. We have mock-ups of essentially an agent marketplace where we were thinking, oh, do we have our own layer, like layer 2 or something, where each of the agents are tokenized, and in order to buy a share of an agent and receive that agent's revenue, you would have to buy the Serve token. So we've really implemented it on every level of our platform and the apps we're building on top of it, and then even taking it a step further with this tokenization aspect, which has been hugely successful in certain cases.
Yeah, I think the token was an integral part of getting us off the ground. I think Web3 is also a really great space in terms of, if you look at a tech adoption curve, early adopters, like that's like crypto users are exactly in that sector. They're the first people who want to try something, even if it's a brand new technology, not 100% reliable, but they can see the potential, right? They love to get there first. And I think by targeting that demographic first, I think we can get way more users and way more information to help guide our decisions. And I think we can beat Web2 companies to the punch based on users, but also interest. And I think the token was an integral part of that. And because of that, we're trying to include it, accrue as much value as possible. So any spin outs we do like Dash.Fund or future ones, for sure, this token will play an integral role in it. And again, like Tim mentioned, we want to be cognizant of the fact that, you know, in Web2, people don't necessarily want to deal with a token. So we're finding alternate ways to still drive value to the token without creating friction. Like we talked about, of course, our goal is to reduce friction as much as possible.
And that's, you know, that's a really a core like directive of ours, is like crypto enabled us to build this. You know, we've been able to build it in an autonomous way. We haven't had to onboard VCs and set up a board of directors who tell us we have to do this and do that. Like I've seen that show and game many times, and it's not what it's like. It's not what it's made out to be. So crypto uniquely enables a much sort of more autonomous and sort of, what's the word I'm looking for, like sovereign way of building a business. And with that, we feel that a lot of people take it or abuse that sort of dynamic, but we see it as a social contract that, you know, we were able to do this, and in return, we are going to make sure that this token is like basically a core part of everything we do, and every bit of money that is generated, or every transaction, or every bit of value creation that comes from something we've built, is going to be tied to the token in some way or another. And that's like our vow and our mission here, to basically promise and provide that to people. And, you know, get back to the ethos of what, you know, this space is really about. Like we really, not only has this been huge for us, but, you know, from a building perspective, but from an investment perspective, like this space uniquely enables people to participate in cutting edge growing markets and technologies at such an early stage. Like to think that we launched our token at $1.25 million valuation, and within a couple of months it was many multiples of that. Like, and where else in the world can you get that? Where else in the world? Like you have to be a fucking accredited investor to do any kind of private deal in the Western world, which is ridiculous. Like, and it's just terrible. It's a terrible state of affairs that just increases that divide, increases economic disparity. And crypto is a unique place where that can be flipped, that dynamic can be flipped. And we want to ensure that this ethos is maintained throughout everything we do.
Yeah, I think that's a responsible and obviously based way to approach it. I think that at the end of the day, though, right, like we are seeing this. It's a movement at the end of the day. It is a really strong movement around us having like tokens being like the end all. Like this is what people want. They want to have the token. And we're kind of like moving away from like, all right, IPOing on the stock market, the end goal, or getting acquired. It is actually like just existing, being sustainable, having a real business model that users want to use, and then the token having like a sustainable model against it that, hey, people want to own it, people want to buy it, it drives the price up. People aren't, there isn't like all this sell pressure, or there is equal sell to buy pressure to keep the token stable.
Yeah, I think it's the maturation of the industry, right? Like we're gonna find, I think most things in life are a balance, neither one extremely one side or the other. And I think we're gonna find that kind of perfect middle ground equilibrium where we get the best parts of the Web2 businesses of real sustainable growth, but also the best parts of the Web3 businesses, like we discussed.
Yeah, I think AI XBT proved that yes, the token having utility of like access to something works, but until a point, right? Like it can actually be gamified, like gamed out of like, okay, everybody's priced out. It's like $300,000 to get access to a terminal. Makes no fucking sense. And maybe that's just an inefficient market. Like that's what we're in. It's an inefficient market, and that's the state of it. But is that the end result here? I don't think so. I think there's better solutions, and we're getting to it again. Maturing, evolving industry. So yeah, we're gonna make our way there. I'm curious, you guys, for your framework, there there's two different sides to it. There is the collaborative side, and then there's the cognitive side. I wanted to get back on maybe like on your tech a little bit and the differentiation against some of what others are trying to do. Can you? I think the collaborative side is pretty understandable. The cognitive side, can you explain that a little bit deeper, just for my a little bit selfishly here, like so that I understand? But I think also it's helpful for those that are listening, not as technically versed, to understand why that's important.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. So, okay, let's say you have some agent framework sitting on GitHub, and I'm a developer and I want to create a multi-agent team for executing some kind of workflow or task, right? I would have to go in there and build out not only the core functionality of my agent, meaning, you know, calling certain APIs and extracting certain information and doing, XYZ tasks. I would then have to build in all of these cognitive and collaborative elements in order to get them to work together. So I would need to build in memory, and there are lots of different forms of memory. I would need to build in this human in the loop mechanism. I would need to build in file creation, file handling, input output passing, task delegation. There's quite a lot of like complex elements to getting a team of different agents, particularly if they're from different frameworks and different languages, to collaborate with each other. And in order to do that, you need to have these sort of AI components added on top. And we abstract all of that away. So we provide that out of the box. So an agent developer, and we've had agent developers come on who have never built an agent in their life. All they did was check out our SDK. They built out the simple capabilities for each of their agent. So defining which APIs to hit and what to do with this information and yada, yada. And that's all they had to do. And within a couple of days, they were able to build like some seriously kick-ass use cases. And they didn't have to worry about any of these AI components that you normally would have to do if you're building in isolation in a sort of isolated environment or on a singular framework. So it just lowers these barriers to adoption like significantly. And that's really where the USP is there.
Yeah, and I think there's also a few, Tim mentioned a few. There's also, we have like feedback loop. So every time it outputs something, we check whether it matches what the expectation was at the beginning. Like we put in a bunch of these systems that essentially like mimic the brain, right? Like Tim mentioned, reasoning, memory, things like that. And yeah, like Tim mentioned, we built that out so that new people don't have to build it all on their own. But I think what makes it special as well is we've really focused on flexibility, so adaptability. So for those developers who are really, really good, want to build their own custom memory module or their own way to interact with their user or their own way to do their reasoning and checking their inputs, they can build that on top. And so we've really focused on trying to, in a way, we create a fully functional brain that you can put into your agent. You just need to build the limbs. And then if you want to expand on different parts of the brain, put your own brain in, you can do that. But if we can just give you this functioning brain that handles a lot of the basic stuff and the important stuff that it needs to function off the bat, we think, again, that lowers the barriers to entry, and if we think it improves the quality of agents.
Love that answer. Guys, I gotta ask, because this sparked in my mind, and I also got a text that came across the screen as you were talking here. We're obviously in a very competitive industry, and you guys have a lot of competitors. One that just came in was you guys are building a framework. You're building something that people can build off of. Why build with you over the more, like, not more popular, I don't think that's the right term, but why build with you guys instead of these other ones like Virtuals or AI 16?
Yeah, I think it's the depth. Like, I think we have a lot of respect for those projects, and I think AI 16 really paved the way in terms of mind share and what agents can do. But their framework, I think, was largely a social framework. Now they've expanded it to Eliza OS, and they're doing more. But obviously, this is like we believe ours is more powerful. Of course, it excels at different things, but we think our framework is really, really powerful. And I think the flexibility thing is one big thing we mentioned, allowing people to do it from any level of development expertise. I think beyond that, our tool calling, like a lot of the like individual features we spend a lot of time refining, we think perform a lot better. And then ultimately, a user experience thing. I think we've tried to make this as simple and as accessible as of a process as possible. And I think beyond that, what's more reliable is the fact that we're really focusing on it. Like whether it's in its 100% perfect state today, unlikely. No, nothing's ever perfect. We're constantly iterating and improving, collecting feedback, implementing new things. So not only do we think we have one of the most powerful frameworks in terms of actual capabilities and what you can do, above and beyond that, we think it's easier to access for people across the spectrum. But as well as that, we have a constant like thirst for innovation to make this an easier experience. Like we're a team of people who are really like super passionate about this. Especially, it's a shame our CTO couldn't join today, but he's really brilliant and he loves talk. I mean, he could sit here and chat for like hours and hours about this stuff. We're constantly talking about different ideas and ways to refine it. So, you know, I think you can count on, if there's a feature that someone else has that we don't have yet, or something they outperform us in, like we're going to identify it and we're going to try to build it better. So I think that's, and yeah, Tim, you want to add to that?
Again, a loaded question, but a good answer. I'll let you go, Tim. Sorry.
Yeah, no, if I can add to that, I think the real crux of what is special about our platform is the plan that we're an aggregator. Like from the very beginning, we didn't want to pigeonhole people into building on one particular framework. We foresaw that there were already several frameworks and that there were going to be an increasing number of frameworks. We are essentially the base orchestration engine. So we don't limit a developer in what they want to build with. A developer can build with AI, with Eliza. They can build with Arc. They can build with Baby AGI. They can build with Crew AI. They can build the agents with whatever framework they desire. Some are more adept at certain things, like Eliza's better at, conversational, social elements. Some other frameworks are better at other things. So we, in that sense, like we bring it all together. Like we don't even really compete in that sense, because you can plug in any agent from a different framework into our platform, and it'll automatically be able to coordinate and work with other agents in tandem. And that's what we spent a year and a half building, is creating a super, super robust engine for orchestrating these agents. So you can plug in 10, 15, 20 agents, however many you want, put them into a workflow, and be confident that they are going to work together in a reliable and scalable way, because that's what we're trying to tackle here. Like we've moved way beyond single agent systems. We're way further ahead of that curve. We're looking at institutional adoption. We want to really lead this space, and in order for that to work, you need that base level orchestration layer that needs to be super like bomb proof and solid. And without that, it's going to fall apart at scale. Like you're not going to be ready for these big players to jump in, and
Right.
that's what we're positioning for.
And again, we love our framework. We think it's great, and we think it's a great way for people to access it. But we also don't want to bet on, I bet on human innovation more than anything. And we think by being that aggregator, by enabling other people and empowering them, we're not only relying on our system and process being better, but if other people are better than us, fantastic, like great. Now you can help make the systems on our platform even better. So I think that's the approach we tried to take with it.
Incredible. I mean,
so every innovation,
we prepared this for 30 minutes before,
Every innovation that happens in this space, like literally makes our platform more valuable and makes it more powerful, which is a key sort of mechanism we wanted to have from the get-go, so that we weren't trying to compete with the now 300 different frameworks. We actually, when you bring them together, they all become more valuable, and we can sit at that sort of layer 0 level.
I love it. I think this is a good baseline conversation for anybody who's trying to understand like what the next. Again, I keep saying next evolution, where we're going, like, but it is not simple like it was before. It requires complexity. It requires inner workings, interoperability between agents to get to these very complex input output inner workings of, like, I keep calling it the black box, but I think your white paper was very good at visualizing, hey, this is not like something goes in, it does a thing, and just there's an output. There are many different outputs, but ultimately one is selected, and it could be influenced by many other outputs of different agents. And that is kind of like the real like sauce here of like that is not trivial to make, and it is not easy to build this in a way that is easy to then build on top of. And you guys have obviously gotten to that point.
Exactly. I mean, that's what we've been busy for so long building, and that's why we're excited. Like now we're at this stage. Obviously, we're going to keep improving it, but we're really excited about bringing people on and also spinning out our own products on top of it. Like this is really been a year and a half setting the foundation, and now like what we're going to build on top is obviously the
Love it.
part.
So
I mean, this is fueled by a year and a half of research. Like this has been as much of a research endeavor as it's been a development endeavor. This is an entirely new space, and the angle at which we've been tackling it at has been completely new. And we have a kick-ass team of engineers and people
how big is
who
your
have
team
been
now?
researching. Sorry?
How big is your team right now?
I mean, close to 20?
So including some fractional people, we're about 20 now.
You guys didn't raise is this all like bootstrapped off of like the token revenue, or I guess
Yeah, we did a SAFT SAFT agreement, so like a pre-sale of tokens last year.
Yep.
Launched the token in November, and then we had some token fees on the
Obviously.
liquidity pool, and then we turned those off back in January, and that's how we've primarily raised our money.
Incredible.
So real crypto roots.
I mean, yeah, I think that's important that you guys said that here, because I think a lot of people in their heads, they're like, well, these guys just launched a token on Pump Fun, and then they had supply, and they still like understanding that, hey, this is the actual process of how they got to where they are today. Here's how they're, paying 20 people. It's helpful. It's good context.
Yeah, I mean, we think it's I mean, for
it's fair launch. Like we wanted to, this space is I think there's a lot of great people in this space. I think there's a lot of honest builders building really cool shit, but there's a too many grifters. And we wanted to lead this with a level of integrity that to set an example here. And we want that to live and breathe through everything we do. And the token launch and the token itself was a huge part of that. Like we fair launched this thing at $1.25 million valuation, which was, we raised our seed round at a $7.5 million valuation, and we ended up launching under it. If I could talk about the whole reasons for that for a long time, but at the end of the day, it was to have a community focus, and
Right.
sort of come back to that crypto ethos and decentralization and fractional ownership. And I mean the fruits of that have been amazing.
And I think just so add one last little bit of it. I think it's also because we believe that's the best route to success. This wasn't some entirely, oh, great for the world. Oh, we only, love to just give back.
Right.
Like, of course, we have these values and morals we want to stick to, but we really think that true lasting success comes from collaboration and being short-term minded and greedy and grabbing for the food as it's in front of you. I think that just leads to failure. And I think we all succeed, by putting our best foot forward and collaborating. So that's kind of.
Yeah, you guys still are just about 5,000 holders. You guys, I mean, there's obviously a community here that's still very engaged, even though, again, the entire sector has just seen a lull. But in my opinion, we're not far from things making a return. Whether you think we are back now or not, we can bait on that. But again, those who have been building, sticking it out, are going to be in a great position for rewarding the people who've stuck around. I'm curious though.
We love our community, and as you said, like this is just the beginning for us, like for the space and for us. Like we're about to open our first like open beta. Like it's still super early on. We have a shit ton of milestones coming up over the next months with the node-based UI, which is going to be a huge unlock for developers and users. We're going to have Dash Fund. We're going to have all these different tokenization aspects, agent fractionalization. We didn't get a chance to talk about that, but like that's something we're super excited about, is like fractionalizing agents themselves. So we have actual utility agents, not just Twitter bots, but actually agents who are generating revenue that can then be shared amongst token holders. Like that's a amazing concept. And then moving into institutional adoption, enterprise, like we have a huge stack roadmap ahead, and we're beyond excited. Like,
Do you have any alpha for listeners right now? Anything you guys haven't announced or released yet that you can share?
Well, if you're not, then it takes the wind out of it, doesn't it?
Well, okay. One thing we've been talking about Dash.fun, which is this dashboard that we're super excited about. I think we've given the timeline as towards the end of April. I think you may be able to expect it a little bit sooner than that. So that's the one bit of alpha I will drop.
It's coming soon. People should be paying attention. If you're not already, make sure you're following Openserv.ai on Twitter.
And our best communities will be the first to get access to that.
Of course, as they should be. Again, it all comes
Absolutely.
back to community and making sure that they're being rewarded, and those who have stuck around and engaged get in early.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you guys have kind of laid out like what's next to expect and where you guys are headed. I'm not sure. Is there anything else you guys want to highlight, or anything people should do if they are unaware of, they want to engage, they want to get involved, where they should go?
Yeah, check us out. Check out our website, Openserv.ai, and also check out our Twitter. I think that's probably more than our website, the best representation of what we're doing. We have a new website coming soon as well in a couple months, hopefully. And yeah, I think our Twitter is probably the best place to read more about us, and it has all of our links. You can join our Telegram channel. I think that's where we are speaking most often, and you can get a direct link to us and send us a DM. We're always happy to chat. I think we're on there all day, every day. And especially now that Tim's on the West Coast, we basically cover like the whole 24-hour period. So we're always there. So happy to answer any questions there as well. Yeah, I don't know, Tim, if you want to add.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd say ultimately, like we're a platform where things get built on top of. And so devs, like if there are any devs listening, I would urge you to just give it a try. Check it out. Like I'm almost certain you're going to be blown away. The feedback we've gotten so far from every dev has been really astounding, from agent devs with tons of experience to agent devs with no experience. And yeah, we see this as the early days of something really, really special, with a lot of game-changing apps and use cases that are going to come out of this. Like Dash.fun is just one of going to be a massive ecosystem of applications that abstract complexity and improve the user experience across a huge number of verticals and sectors, not only in crypto, but across Web2, across marketing, across sales, like across all kinds of business functions. This is going to be, I think if we had this talk in a year time, we're going to be talking about a totally different game here, with the platform and the Serve token at the epicenter of it all, which we're stoked about.
Love that. One thing I will also note here is I spent a ton of time here kind of hammering down like Web3. You mentioned here there is a Web2 aspect of this, of that the multi-agent system is not just like go trade this, go do that on chain, but there is a highly important side of this that is Web2.
Yeah, for sure. Again, I think we think Web3 is the perfect place to start, given the things we discussed before. People have vested interests, so they're really motivated to try it out. They're more willing to try out new technology, and we think that gives us a huge edge in terms of experience. But the much larger pie, of course, is Web2, because it's naturally just a much bigger space, and AI agents are going to make an impact on so many different facets. So again, our approach is to build, again, with the core platform as well, it's not just interoperable between different agents, different frameworks, but it works on both Web 2 and Web 3. Like it's not solely a Web 3 product. And we really see the future of the growth of the company, but also the growth of the space to be expanding into these Web 2 verticals. And we just think there's a lot of value to capture there. Tim mentioned kind of offhanded earlier in the call, but we have calls probably like nearly every week, if not multiple times a week, from different Web 2 companies that reach out to us, medical companies, tech companies, all these different people who want to work with us to build all these different solutions. And I think that's just the start. Like Dash.fun is us solving the user experience for who our target or who our demographic is now, the people who are in part of our audience now. There's a whole number of other different sectors that have a lot of friction that we can solve with agents. So 100% our goal is to expand and be a bigger thing than Web 2 and Web 3, because going back to what I mentioned earlier about balance, we think the best world is when they're integrated, right? We talked about stable coins. We haven't talked about, but you see a lot of talk about stable coins now being bigger and more integration of Web3 rails into traditional Web2 businesses. Like I think the perfect version of this is a much more integrated ecosystem, and that's kind of what we're building towards.
I can't think of a better way to end this conversation than on that. What a way to cap things off. Tim, Lucas, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me and sharing what you guys are building. I will take you up on that conversation in a year. We'll check back in when you probably towards the end of the year. We should do this. We'll come back in. We'll have a conversation. We'll see what's changed, what's worked, what hasn't.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed this conversation quite a lot. But
Us
thank
too.
you guys.
Hey, thank you so much for being such a great facilitator. Great questions.
Of course,
it, man.
of course. Well, guys, thank you for everybody in chat and who's been watching for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you haven't, again, please make sure you are following Openserv.ai on Twitter, and make sure you go check out Lucas and Tim online as well for all their updates. And if you want to DM them, get involved, go start creating. You don't need to be you don't have to be a scientist. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to go create an AI. Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you for joining in. We'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Openserv coming Monday. See you guys there.